All right, folks, I think we're ready to go here. Good evening and welcome to the Johnson City Press's Candidates Forum. I'm Nathan Baker. I'm the Press's news editor, and I'm going to be moderating tonight. We're going to hear from candidates for the Republican nomination in May for 3 offices here in Washington County. We're going to start with the county clerk's office. Then we're going to move on to the mayor's race, and we're going to finish off with the sheriff's office. First, I'd like to thank the Jonesboro Visitor Center here for hosting us. Before I get started, I'd like to go over just the format of how we're going to operate here. We're going to start with 3 minutes for each candidate to give an opening statement. Then we're going to move on to the questions. Editors of the Press have selected those questions. Some were suggested by readers, and some were suggested here tonight by the audience. You'll have 3 minutes to answer each question, and we're going to alternate who answers. When we finish the questions, you'll have 5 minutes to make closing statements. Please address me and not your fellow candidate. We have a timekeeper here tonight, one of those ladies right there. When they hold up the yellow sign, it means you have 30 seconds left, just like that. When they flip it over to red, it means your time's up, and if you would please conclude your remarks then. If you've joined us here in the audience tonight, please remember to silence your cell phones and devices. We've got a tight schedule tonight, so if you'll hold your applause until after we finish closing statements, we'll have time for that. And if we'd like to ask you that you not make any remarks or applause while candidates are speaking. We've got to give everybody their time. If we're ready, we'll go to the county clerk's race. Our candidates for that are Danny Edens and Cheryl Story. Thank you both for being here tonight. And we'll just go ahead and get started with opening statements. Danny, we'll start with you. You've got 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Danny Edens. I'm a candidate for Washington Clerk in the May 3rd primary.
Pull it a little closer to you, Danny.
About now. My name is Danny Edens. I'm a candidate for county clerk. I'm currently serving on the Washington County Commission, my 4th term for District 4. I'm employed for 25 years for the town of Jonesboro as a supervisor. I'm also a United States Air Force veteran. I've been married to my wife Kelly for the past 38 years. We have 2 grown children, Josh and Sarah, and we have 5 grandchildren.
Thank you, Danny. Ms. Story, you got 3 minutes too.
Good evening. I want to start by thanking the Johnson City Press for putting this forum together. It is a pleasure and an honor to speak with you this evening. Before I begin telling you about myself, my family, and my experience, I would like to first clear up one question that might be on a lot of minds here tonight or watching online. I am not related to Kathy Story. We do have the same last name spelling, but we are not related. I am my own person. If Kathy were here tonight, she would tell you that when I began working at the county clerk's office, she had never heard of me, nor I her. I am Cheryl Story, a candidate for the office of county clerk of Washington County. I have the dedication, experience, and complete understanding of this office to go to work for you on day one, and I am humbly asking for your vote and your support. I am a lifelong citizen of Washington County, born in Johnson City, and raised in Sulphur Springs. I now live in Jonesboro with my husband, Wes, 24 years. We have a daughter, Allie. She is a senior at Daniel Boone and is also dual enrolled at ETSU. Both are in attendance here tonight, and we take great pride in our county and our future leaders. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Story. All right, we'll get into the questions. We're starting with you, Ms. Story. You've got 3 minutes. The question is, what, in your view, are the duties and responsibilities of the clerk's office?
The duties and the responsibilities of the county clerk's office range from collecting sales tax on registered vehicles to issuing motor vehicle titles and registrations, issuing marriage license, issuing business license, manufactured mobile home decals, processing applications for beer permits as well as renewing, processing applications for notaries. We issue pawnbroker's license, ambulance permits, fireworks permits. The list could go on and on, but that's the primary duties of the county clerk's office.
Thank you. Mr. Eden, same question.
I don't think I have anything to add, except I think she might want to have commission minutes and agendas, maintaining those from the county clerk's office. I think that's probably one of the most important things. County clerk. Can you hear me now? How about now? Better? Okay. I said, I don't think I have much to add. I think she covered it all, except maybe taking care of the minutes and the agendas of the Washington County Commission meetings. I feel like that's one of the most important things or important jobs a county clerk has. That's the only one I noticed that she left out.
Thank you, Mr. Edens. And you're going to start the next question. Why do you want to be the county clerk?
I'm running for county clerk because it's the next thing in my life experience. Everything to me is an experience. I got the county commission seat when my father passed away on an interim basis. I've been serving for 16 years in 2 separate districts. After that, I decided it was time for me to seek an office holder's job. It was something that I'd always considered.
Yeah, sorry about that. Would you share? Well, we need it for the feed. See if you could just switch that out.
Okay. I've always had a heart's desire to run for an office holder's job. I've been in politics since 2005. The job came open when Kathy Story announced her retirement, so I decided to run. I made Miss Story aware of it, and I think we're both having a time running for this office. I think either one of us could do a good job, but I think I'm the best for the job. The reason I think I'm the best for the job is life experiences. When I first started life, an 18-year-old boy, I joined the United States Air Force. When I left the United States Air Force, that man had taken an 18-year-old kid and made him the leader, a person that could lead both men and women. I moved on, came home. I've been working for the town of Jonesboro for the last 25 years. I'm now a supervisor for the town of Jonesboro. They took me from an entry-level position to someone that can supervise and maintain an entire department. I went on to the county commission. I've served on 8 committees, and I've chaired 3 over the last 16 years. So that experience, the leadership experience I got from my 3 jobs from the age of 18 to present day, is what's led me to believe that I can be the county clerk. I know I can do the job, and that's my next dream. So I'm seeking that election.
Thank you. Ms. Story, same question. And again, it was, why do you want to be county clerk?
Thank you. Anyone that knows me knows that I take my job serious. While I do like to have fun and enjoy my time at work, I feel experience, customer service, as well as knowledge is of the utmost importance. During my time at the county clerk's office, there have been 2 ladies that I have looked up to for advice as well as knowledge of the job, and that is Kathy Story, our current county clerk, as well as Sandra James, my treasurer. When I say I have the experience for this position, I really do. In 2001, I began working part-time under former county clerk Doyle Cloyd. In 2003, I became full-time, and in 2011 was promoted to chief deputy and office manager under current county clerk Kathy Story, and I still hold this position today. In addition to the regular duties of the county clerk's office, I have the trust to perform all payroll functions as well as record the minutes for the county commission. Running for county clerk is something that I have been encouraged to do by so many for years. So when Kathy decided that she was going to retire, I decided now's the time. With 20 years experience, I have the ability to do the job, and I know the job from the ground up. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now, Ms. Story, as an office that interacts directly with the public, what upgrades to technology or other changes do you believe could be implemented in the clerk's office to improve customer service?
Upgrades to technology, the thing that I want to focus on is kiosk for renewing license plates without having to stand in line.
Thank you. Mr. Eden, same question, and you'll have to switch mics again.
Could you repeat the question?
Yes, sir. As an office that interacts directly with the public, what upgrades to technology or other changes do you believe could be implemented to improve customer service?
Well, I would like to look into the thought of maybe doing driver's license renewals, hunting and fishing licenses being offered, a notary on site. I also would like to see the working conditions improved for the employees there. I'd like to see the morale changed. I'd like to see things offered for senior citizens, the elderly, the handicapped. Not necessarily a kiosk, but I think there's other ways we can reach out with a personal touch to meet those needs. The clerk's office needs change, in my opinion, and I'm that change. Thank you.
Thank you. And keep that. You'll start out the next one. The next question, are you satisfied with the current location of the clerk's offices in Jonesboro and Johnson City, and are there changes you would like to make to them?
I don't have that much knowledge of the locations or what may or may not be available in the county. That would be up to the county commission, I think, to take advice from the current clerk and look into the places that she recommends or that she thinks is the best possible locations for those offices. As far as where the offices are right now and as far as where I stand, yes, I'm satisfied with both.
Thank you. Yes. Are you satisfied with the current locations of the clerk's offices in Jonesboro and Johnson City, and are there changes you would like to make to them?
For the most part, I am satisfied with the current locations. With our Johnson City office, it's probably not the ideal place as far as space, considering we do share an office with the trustee, but yes.
Thank you. And how would you structure payroll and employment opportunities to compete with the private sector and keep and attract employees? Yes, starting with you.
Repeat the question, I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry. How would you structure payroll and employment opportunities to compete with jobs in the private sector and to keep and attract employees?
Well, I think that, I don't really know how to answer that.
Okay.
Or what to say to that.
All right. Mr. Edens?
Could you repeat the question, please?
I can. How would you structure payroll and employment opportunities to compete with the private sector and to keep and attract employees to the clerk's office?
Well, I'd first have to see the current structure, which I haven't seen or have any knowledge of. But I think annual raises at a competitive rate on a yearly basis would maintain at least where the clerks are right now and what they're getting paid and keeping up with the inflation and the times. Of course, the county commission approves or disapproves any pay raises that we give to our employees in county offices. But that doesn't mean that we can't ask for the current pay raise that we desire. At least that way we're doing right by the employees, whether we receive that amount or not.
Thank you. I keep it for the next one. What are the greatest challenges facing the next county clerk?
That's a good question. I don't know that I have a good answer for that. But I know they will continue to face the same challenges of not enough staff, not high enough pay, being competitive in the workforce. I know that was your last question, and that's something we'll always have to face. But I feel like we'll have to continue to do the right thing the right way, to say what we mean and mean what we say, to attract good people to the office, and to continue with the county commission on funding and funding our employees at the county clerk's office at the level they need to be funded to be competitive.
Thank you. Ms. Story, same question.
I would agree with what he said.
All right. Well, that's the last question. So now we'll move on to the closing statements. Again, you have 5 minutes each for these. And Ms. Story, when you're ready, go ahead.
Okay. With my experience, I know what works well and the areas that I will improve with today's technology and resources. My goal is simple: to provide superior customer service, innovation, and efficiency in operations for all citizens of Washington County. And as I said earlier, one plan will be to install kiosks for renewing license plates for fast, convenient service without standing in line. But I will not stop here. I will continue to listen to your needs and thoughts and will strive to make innovation that will meet and exceed expectations. Bottom line, I will do all I can to save you as taxpayers time for your transactions as well as money. I am truly blessed to have served for 20 years, and I know that no one is better qualified for this position than myself. And I hope you think so as well, and that you will give me your trust and your vote, and I promise I will not let you down. I would like to thank everyone involved in the forum this evening. Please check out my Cheryl Story for County Clerk Facebook. And if anyone would like to volunteer to work for me during early voting, which begins April 13th through the 28th, or Election Day, May 3rd, please reach out to me and let me know. Let's keep trusted experience working for you. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Thank you.
Okay, closing statement. Like I said, I am candidate for county clerk. I think I'm the best candidate for the job. I would appreciate your vote. I do think there needs to be drastic improvements and changes in the county clerk's office. I do think we need a clerk that's going to be visible, available, and attentive to the customer's needs. I don't think you should have to go look for your clerk or ask to see your clerk. I plan on, if we're in this job as county clerk, the first thing I'm going to start working on is public relations. I don't know how often you've ever seen the county clerk in the Johnson City office, but that office and those folks up there, those taxpayers up there, just as important as the taxpayers down on this end. If they're elected, I plan on splitting time between the Johnson City office and the Jonesboro office. I plan on everybody in this county seeing and feeling the presence of their county clerk. I plan on being outside when that line gets longer than 10 or 15 people. I plan on going down that hallway and talking to folks, shaking hands, explaining why the wait time's what it is, and easing that burden on them until we can get some other options, such as the ones I mentioned earlier about hunting license, fishing license, renewal license, offering more services. Until we can do that, I plan on being that bridge between the delay and the customer that's out there having to wait. We serve the taxpayer. So anything an office holder is a servant. And if we look at ourselves as anything more than a servant, we're looking wrong. We're looking wrong. We should do everything in our power to serve the taxpayer above and beyond, whatever that takes. And that starts with the office holder. It doesn't start with the employee. It starts with the office holder. Okay, you practice what you preach, and people follow what you lead. And our clerk's office needs a lot of help, a lot of improvement, and I think I'm the one that can bring it. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Edens. Thank you both for being here. Let's give a round of applause, please. Okay, and that's the end of that part. We'll be back with the mayor's race in just a little bit. Thank you. Okay, looks like we're ready to go. Again, this is the candidate seeking the Republican nomination in May for the Washington County Mayor's race. We've got Joe Grandy and we've got Robbie Tester. And I'll go over the format again. We're going to start with opening statements. Candidates will have 3 minutes each. Then we'll go to the questions. 3 minutes each question. We're going to alternate the order of answers, and then we're going to go to closing statements, and you'll have 5 minutes each for that. Thank you guys for being here, and let's get started. Mr. Grandy, opening statements, please.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Johnson City Press, for putting this on. We appreciate the hard work you do every day and supporting the information that is important to the county. So the question is, are you better today? Are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? That's a question Ronald Reagan asked the American people in 1980. When I first ran for county commission in 2010, the old ways of building everything with debt financing had landed the county government in over $160 million worth of debt. And the county was only making interest payments, not paying principal. When I ran for mayor 4 years ago, Washington County debt was $172 million. And by the end of this fiscal year, it will be down to $132 million. You see, I came to full-time public service after a 3-decade career at Ferguson Enterprises, where I had grown the business from 8 employees to 80 and $1 million in gross revenue to $30 million, with back-to-back years of double-digit growth. What I brought to the office of the mayor was a practical business background and a conservative philosophy. Leadership means stewardship. And that's why we have a long-term plan to pay down the county's debt and prepare for future capital needs and projects. We've already saved taxpayers millions of dollars in interest payments, and this conservative approach will help keep taxes low in the future. It's what Tennessee does at the state level, and those same principles of fiscal responsibility are serving us well here in Washington County. Some people promise things just to get elected, but once they're in office, they do something else, or even the opposite of what they said they would do. I have done what I said I would do, plain and simple. We paid down the debt and kept spending steady with one of the lowest tax burdens in the region. Actions speak louder than words. Again, I've done what I said I would do, plain and simple. We paid down the debt and kept spending steady with no tax increase. That's still my approach, and that's why I'm seeking a second term as mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grandy. We'll share that microphone with Mr. Tester. Whenever you're ready.
Hi, I'm Robbie Tester. I'm 42, have a wonderful wife, Whitney, and we have a son, Charlie. I'm a professional licensed engineer and worked in Johnson City for almost 20 years. I graduated from UT in civil engineering with minors in environmental engineering and business administration, summa cum laude. Now, in normal life, I haven't really gone around telling people that, but since this is basically a giant job interview in front of 133,000 county citizens, I feel like it's relevant to tell you. I love Washington County. It's home. I was born here, have lived here the vast majority of my life. Both sides of my family are here, our church is here, and it's one that my great-grandfather and grandparents helped start over 70 years ago. Let me ask you, have you ever felt discouraged or like you can't make a difference in your government? Well, I want to encourage you that you can. Let me tell you a little about how I got involved in county government. I'm a concerned citizen who cares. I believe in small, limited government. I believe freedom works, and I'm passionate about good government and the principles that made our country great. One day about 8 years ago, one of my 2 county commissioners said to me, "Robbie, both of us aren't running again. You should run." I kind of laughed at him at first, and I ended up saying something like, "I'll pray about it and think about it. We'll see, maybe." Well, I decided to get the signatures to get on the ballot, and after knocking on doors, literally until my knuckle was sore, I think it was actually bruised, I found myself at commission meetings voting. I voted no a lot, and by myself many times. It didn't take them long to nickname me Commissioner No. I think David Tomita gets credit for that one. But also, in my first 6 months, I proposed that we add a public comment time to our meetings so citizens would have an opportunity to speak, and we added it. This past year, as chairman of our Rules Committee, I helped lead changes to our annual budget process to improve transparency and timeliness. Hopefully, it'll help encourage more involvement. Believe me, you can make a difference. I've been honored to serve on our county commission. I've tried to serve diligently, treating others with respect, even when we've disagreed, and I think my consistent conservative voting record speaks for itself. In this race, our records have some big differences. Running for mayor this year is not really something we had planned, but after much prayerful consideration from around November or so, Whitney and I decided to get a petition and make myself available to serve if county citizens want me in the position. We wanted to try to make a positive difference. I talked a lot about good government, principles and process, engagement of citizens, protecting our God-given rights, providing efficient services, fiscal conservatism, communication, and respect. If elected, we've promised to donate back a portion of the salary. Also, we had some issues with communication this term, and I've promised to reach out to each commissioner at least once per month, regardless of personalities, parties, votes, anything. Thank you for being here tonight, and I appreciate this opportunity to talk with you.
Thank you. We'll move on to the questions now. We're going to start with you, Mr. Tester. What do you believe are the primary duties of the county mayor?
I've got some notes about that. The role of the mayor, I feel like, is one of vision, of leadership, setting a tone of what government should do. That's something that I'm passionate about, is what is the proper role of government. I believe in small, limited government. I feel like the smaller government is, the more freedom and opportunity that gives us as individual citizens. The role of the mayor is kind of an interesting one. The mayor gets a choice on whether to chair the commission or not. If they don't chair the commission, then they get veto power. The veto power is kind of ceremonial or administrative because all it takes to override it is a simple majority vote. So you're making them vote again. I've seen that used once in my 7 to 8 years being around. The mayor, I think, plays an important role in, as I said a minute ago, communication, coordination between departments and officials, department heads. Working with the county commission is very important, I think, for the mayor. A very important role for the mayor is the budget, being the chief financial officer. The mayor doesn't have a vote on the commission. The commission makes most of the decisions. The mayor's role is in the executive branch. So I see the role of the mayor as being to help provide the information that the commissioners need to make good, thoughtful decisions. And then on the back end, implementing them. That's what the executive branch does. The mayor's not all the executive branch, though. You've got county clerk and assessor and register of deeds and sheriff and all kinds of folks that are part of the executive branch. The mayor also has a pulpit, I feel like, to communicate with the public, to, as I said a minute ago, encourage citizen involvement, which I think is very important to our government serving the people like it's intended to. The mayor's office also is responsible, and this may get into the nuts and bolts a little bit here, but the mayor's office is responsible for putting stuff on our county website. I'll give you a quick little story. A couple months ago for our county commission meeting, the packet for our county commission meeting is supposed to be, well, the rules of our county commission say that our agenda is supposed to be out 5 days at least before the meeting. Well, the packet that goes with that didn't get put on the website until 2 days before the meeting, and it was 250 pages. So how are commissioners, citizens supposed to stay involved and active when those kind of things happen? To me, simple little things like that on the administrative side would be very easy to implement and do pretty quickly to encourage citizen involvement.
Thank you. Mr. Grandy, same question.
Well, after spending 3.5 years in this role, I'll just say that it is probably the most diverse job that I have ever thought about holding. The first, the mayor is the face of the community. So when new folks come to the community, a lot of times, they look to see what the mayor represents, what his experience is, and what his values are. Certainly, a coordination of effort with our local economic development partners to bring new business to the county. It's important that the county is constantly recruiting, but the biggest opportunity for job growth is with existing business. So, certainly looking over the overall economic condition of the county, one of the great things about Washington County is that we're first in a lot of things, and it's really important. So the mayor needs to be a leader. County government is a strange animal. A lot of the work that goes on in county government is done by elected officials and office holders. There's 7 of them. The mayor is just one. The mayor has no authority over the other 6, nor do any of the other 6 have any authority over the mayor's office. But in order for the county to function and work as a collective unit, the mayor has really a duty to pull these offices together, and which we do. And so we have regular meetings, and it's a great team. So experience in leadership, experience in management, and team building is something that was certainly a desirable quality in a mayor. What the mayor is not responsible for is putting the packet together for the commission. That's not his role. And, that's done by staff. It's really supposed to be done by the leaders of the county commission. The county commission is the legislative body, and they are the ones who make spending decisions. The mayor doesn't. But he is responsible as the budget committee chairman to bring suggestions and a plan together for the commission to consider. Economic development is a key role for the mayor. Again, working with existing businesses to help them expand and to help create prosperity in the community is another duty of the mayor. So it is, again, it's an amazing responsibility. It's an amazing job, and it is incredibly diverse.
Thank you. Okay, you might need to pull a little closer to yourself then.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Grandy, what will be the biggest challenges for the mayor's office in the next 4 years?
Well, I think one of the challenges that faces everyone today is inflation, and certainly that is one of the key components that I'm looking at going into this budget cycle. My philosophy, less debt, longer vision, has allowed us to create a long-term capital plan. And so the good news on that is, that long-term capital plan anticipates future needs and creates a revenue stream to actually, meet those needs, whether it's buildings or building repairs or other things in the county. Another major challenge going forward would be workforce. I hear that from businesses small to large, whether it's McDonald's or one of our major manufacturers or industries, that workforce is a major challenge. So what do we do to deal with that? One of the things, we are in a place now, we have former Boones Creek Elementary campus has been turned over to our local TCAT, Tennessee College of Applied Technologies, for job training, so that we'll be able to, in our school system, in a middle college model, have our high school juniors and seniors take career training classes so that when they graduate, they'll graduate with a high school diploma, a work-ready certificate, and be ready to go into the workforce. Clearly, along with job issues is our opioid situation. This part of Tennessee is the worst impacted in the state. Tennessee is one of the worst impacted states in the country for substance abuse. And So one of the things that we're looking at now to help that is a regional treatment facility. It's a big project. It's a lofty goal, but we have a team of people that are working on opportunities for long-term recovery and job training and re-entry into our diverse community with job-ready skills. So, that's just a handful of the challenges. There's plenty more, but we'll just sort of stop at that.
Thank you. Mr. Tester, same question.
Well, I agree with the mayor that opioids and workforce are challenges. I also agree with him that inflation is a huge challenge we have. We had budget hearings last week for this upcoming budget, and almost every department head, I think, and official that presented talked about having openings in their department where they can't fill the positions because the pay is not high enough. Keeping good employees. We have a lot of good county employees, I feel like, and in order to provide the services that citizens want the county to provide, we need to keep those good employees and hopefully be able to fill the empty positions. So inflation and trying to keep our budget in control to take care of that, I think, is a huge one. I feel like government needs a constant pressure on it or a force on it to keep it from growing, if you know what I mean. Government over time just grows and grows and grows. And over the last 7 years or so, I look back, I think our budget went up about 4% a year, something like that. But our assessed values were only going up 1.5%. So we kind of have a structural issue between revenue and spending. And the commission has talked about that. Let me tell you a quick little story. Last year at budget time, there were commissioners saying, we got a structural problem. We need to fix it between revenue and expenses. In the budget last year, we were adding, I think it was 8 new positions. And for instance, we were adding $30,000 for a new lobbyist position, for money to go towards the lobbyist. Those were some things that were new in the budget. People were saying, if we don't do something about this, we may have to have a tax increase. Well, I said, let's do something about it. Let's work on it. Well, 8 of the commissioners voted anyway to go ahead with the budget without touching a dime of spending. And what happened, there was a proposal for taking sales tax money and moving it from the schools to the county government, to that side. And the commission unanimously voted that down. 3 days later, worked on the budget for months, budget process going on for months. 3 or 4 days later, the mayor and the director of finance comes back with a proposal of, well, let's take $2 million from the capital projects fund and let's unrestrict these funds and basically, in my opinion, temporarily plug in a hole. And I said at that commission meeting, let's work on it now. And I said, anybody who votes for this tonight better be ready to vote for a tax increase next year because I'm not doing it. So I feel like that structural problem is a huge one that the county has to figure out what we're going to do about, and fighting inflation, trying to take care of our employees, keep services going, fill those empty positions. I think that's probably the biggest one that we're facing.
Thank you. Next one starts with you. What role should the county play in economic development, and how would you shape that role as mayor?
Well, economic development is definitely one that he and I disagree some on our approach, I think. I feel like the proper role of government in economic development is keeping your taxes as low as you can, keeping your regulations as low as you can, keeping your fees as low as you can. I feel like government's role is to maintain a level playing field for competition. In my opinion, part of what has made America great is freedom and competition and a free market economy. So these special deals that we do where we give tax incentives or tax breaks or to one company or one developer, I disagree with them on several principles, and I've voted no on them consistently. One of the issues I have with them is transparency. A lot of times the companies, they'll want like a non-disclosure agreement. They want to negotiate between counties or between states, and they want their name to remain secret. They don't want you to know who they are. So transparency is a huge issue. I feel like transparency is very important in government. Government's there to serve the people, right? So another issue I have with those is equitable treatment of taxpayers. If you give one taxpayer a break, or one business a break, or one developer a break, what if their competitors is across town and they've been paying their taxes faithfully for 50 years? I mean, it amazes me that there's not more pushback sometimes on those things. I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's right. I don't think that's a proper role of government, to pick and choose winners and losers, or say we're going to help this side of town but not this side of town, or we're going to try to help put an outdoor store down here when you got an outdoor store over on the other side of town that's been there for a long time paying their taxes. As I said earlier, I believe in the free market economy. I think the free market economy best knows how to allocate resources most efficiently. I feel like the more government gets involved in the free market economy, it creates distortions, it creates problems, it creates malinvestment, it creates inefficiencies. The free market economy can most efficiently allocate capital. Also, when we get involved and do these things with government, it detaches the risk and reward from one another. When an entrepreneur or an investor wants to start a business or expand their business, they're risking their own money. They're not risking other people's money. I've heard people say, I've had a good friend that used to say OPM, other people's money. It's real easy for the government to spend other people's money and then say, look what we did for you. I believe in freedom and competition, and I think that the government should be small and limited and stay out of the way and let people compete. If we're going to do those things, though, real quickly, I will say that we could add some more stipulations to them. For instance, that they need to hire Washington County citizens as their employees, or that they need to buy local. We could add those in there if we're going to do them.
Thank you. Mr. Grandy.
And the question again?
The question is, what role should the county play in economic development, and how would you shape that role as mayor?
Well, the good news on that is I certainly have a track record. I've been involved in economic development as a private citizen in business, supported our local economic development entities in the company that I've built across this community really for decades. So it's very important. So why is economic development important? What is it as far as that goes? Essentially, it's job creation. Job creation is one of the most important things that we can do to support our local economy and our local government and local businesses. The majority of jobs, new jobs that are created by existing businesses. And sometimes it takes help for these businesses to grow. Targeted tax cuts for business growth is an integral part of the economic development operation. When we are recruiting businesses to come into the community, it's a competitive environment. It's a highly competitive environment. We're competing against Middle Tennessee, we're competing against Chattanooga, we're competing against Memphis, Charlotte, Richmond, you name it, all these other markets. And in order to be competitive with these other markets, these targeted tax cuts are exactly the stimulus that these businesses are looking for. And it's not always the same. In working with and negotiating with businesses that want to move to the area, their needs are very different. Sometimes they just need a building. Sometimes they need a lease. Sometimes they need other things. Sometimes they need just a little financial incentive to make us competitive with other markets. Businesses and entrepreneurs know how to create wealth and grow jobs. And so to put tax cuts in their hands is the best opportunity we have to grow our community. It's not what government does. It's what these individuals do with the money that we allow them to keep in their businesses. Tax cuts leave more money in the community, in hands of family and business owners, instead of government, taking money away from them. Government doesn't know best. Government doesn't create jobs. People and businesses do. And that's why we need to continue to recruit businesses and help local businesses expand.
Thank you. Next question, how should the county address debt, both in terms of lowering existing debt and taking on new debt? And Mr. Grandy, we'll start with you.
Okay. So, my slogan, leadership means stewardship, certainly applies to this. Less debt, longer vision. 4 years ago, when I ran to reduce our county debt. In those 4 years, we reduced it by over $30 million. We need to continue to pay down the existing debt that we have. But all debt isn't bad, but it's always more expensive. So one of the things that we've done in our county government operation is create these long-term capital plans where we're dedicating a certain amount of money to capital needs in the county. We all know that buildings are going to need repair, they're going to need roofs, they're going to need maintenance, they're going to need other things. And in the past, government, when a need like that arose, they just went out and borrowed money. And today, we're setting aside money for planned future needs. I'm drawing on 3 decades of business experience in successful operations with a lot of sales growth, to understand how this works and how these needs are. Planning for future needs is absolutely critical. One of the things we've done recently is to negotiate with the town of Jonesboro to create a unique financial opportunity for a new school. Desperately needed. It's a great project. It's great for the kids. Jonesboro kids deserved a better learning environment than what they had. Working with the town of Jonesboro, they are going to take on the bonds for that school with special USDA rates. The county is going to lease that facility for up to 28 years, and after the end of the lease, the county will own the building and turn it over to the school system. It's a phenomenal opportunity, and those sort of unique, creative financial arrangements are what will keep long-term debt low in Washington County. So, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Tester.
I think the answer to that's really simple. Don't borrow anymore. In my time on county commission, I have never voted for any more long-term debt, ever. The capital plan that we put in 2016, I told the mayor at the time, which was not my counterpart here, it was the previous mayor, I didn't vote for that big tax increase that funded it. But I did tell him at the time, I said, this could be a good thing if it's managed conservatively over a long period of time. But that's hard to get government to do. When government has a big pot of money, what's it do with it? It finds something to spend it on. It's very easy to spend it if it's there. It's even easier to spend it when you can borrow as much as you want to. When you can borrow money and spend it and commit future generations or whoever to pay that. It's so easy. That's why I am very anti-government debt, period. I think you should plan ahead. I think you should plan for expenses. I think you should maintain your buildings. I think you should take care of things. But I don't think government should borrow to do it. I'm an engineer. That's what I do for a living. We tackle complex problems. We analyze problems. We get the information. We work with others to try to find solutions to those. He mentioned Jonesboro as, a solution to a unique solution to a problem. It was unique and creative, all right. I would say it was a creative way to borrow more money without saying you're borrowing money. The town's borrowing it, but the county's committed to paying every single dime of interest and everything. So did the county officially borrow money? No, but it's paying lease payments for a long time to pay for it. When we were voting on that, in the documents, we didn't end up, the town's not ending up borrowing it for that as long as what was in the documents. But when we were voting on it, it said that the term would be up to 38 years. I was the youngest county commissioner down there, and at the time I was thinking, I think I was about 38 at the time, and I was thinking, this 38 years, like I'll be 76. I mean, I'm the youngest person down here. That's a long time, and it was a lot of money. So to me, holding government spending in check, that's what we have to try to do. And it's so easy to spend it when you've got the money there, or you can borrow it. So I think a constant force and a constant pressure by citizens, commissioners, the mayor, whoever, to try to hold government spending back and to try to find ways to make your budget work, I think that's what we need to try to do. Just don't borrow anymore. That's the best way to handle debt.
Thank you, Mr. Tester. The next one starts with you again. Mr. Tester, how do you plan to tackle important issues like education, infrastructure, and workforce development within the constraints of the county's budget?
It's a good question. As we said, those are some of our priorities that we've talked about lately. I think you have to prioritize. I think in the budget you have to prioritize. You have to think, what are your needs? What are your wants? To me, you got to think about what is the role of government. What do people expect from government? They expect roads, they expect bridges, they expect police, they expect courts, infrastructure. You know, those are the services they expect. They expect schools. To me, the workforce development component, it's mainly about education, in my opinion. And I think we're doing really good things with that. I think we're kind of trying to make a pivot back towards vocational education and doing more of that. For a long time, we've encouraged everybody to go to four-year college, and we were talking about debt a minute ago. A lot of times they come out with a lot of debt and a degree that they may or may not be able to get a job with. So I think we gotta focus on education in our schools, and that to me is the workforce development part of that. The economic development part he was talking about, infrastructure, I think is a big thing. As an engineer, well, one of the main roles that I didn't mention earlier that the mayor has is overseeing county property and buildings. Well, as a civil and structural engineer, who better to oversee county property and buildings than an engineer? On infrastructure projects, we've been doing a lot of water projects lately. That's something that we've started and I think is greatly needed, and it's a good thing. The problem is there's so many miles of road in our county without water lines. It's such a huge issue that it's never been tackled before, I guess, or at least in tiny little pieces. And this commission, and the last two commissions since I've been around, has made great strides towards that. But we need to try to figure out a way to get some funding to continue that. And the stimulus money we've had lately has been a great help with that. And there's a lot of ideas. Again, when you got a pot of money, everybody's wanting it. And with this stimulus money, it's kind of like that. The federal government's given us much stimulus money for COVID. And waterline projects is something that we've talked about doing a lot with that stimulus money. And everything else that gets proposed with it competes against that. That's something I've been trying to think about in terms of prioritizing with our budget and what do you do with the stimulus money. For instance, the meat processing plant the other day. And again, that one gets into role of government and is that something government should be involved in. And the way that was structured, they had in there the county was going to give $2 million, but then they were going to borrow like $5 or $6 million, and we had it in the resolution that the county could take that over if they default on their debt. And basically it said we could take over the debt and the operating of it. So anyway, I think prioritizing what government's role should be and what its real responsibilities and what citizens want it to do.
Thank you. Mr. Grandy, same question.
Nathan, sorry, would you repeat it again?
I sure will. How do you plan to tackle important issues like education, infrastructure, and workforce development within the constraints of the county's budget?
I think we sort of touched on workforce development in the past a little bit, and I believe everybody sort of knows where my beliefs are on that. Education would be probably my number one priority. I think it's absolutely critical for the success and the future of our county, certainly our children. And one of the really good things is about education is Washington County has one of the best education systems in the entire state. We are blessed in so many ways in Northeast Tennessee and generally, but particularly in Washington County, between the Johnson City system and the Washington County system. They are both top rated in the state. They turn out some of the finest students. I'm going to go speak to the top 10% of graduates from the high schools here in a week or so, and you won't believe the schools, the colleges that these students are going to be attending. It's phenomenal. So doing what we can for education, of course the state legislators considering new funding for that. Be very interested to see how that works out. But, it's certainly a high priority. Opportunities like the Jonesboro School to give our Jonesboro kids, a great working environment in the classroom, highly critical, highly important, very important. Talked earlier about the Spoons Creek campus turning into Tennessee College of Applied Technology campus. That takes a whole different segment of our students and gives them a great career opportunity. The intent is to set that thing up with construction trades, plumbing, heating, and electrical, mechanical, carpentry. So these students will graduate from their high school with a work-ready certificate, and they'll be able to go out and hit the road and be job-ready. Absolutely, absolutely important. Other infrastructure components. Since I've been involved in government as a commissioner, I led the mayor's task force in water. I've been involved in it certainly in my business career as well as here. I know a lot about it. There are a lot of citizens in Washington County, but it's hard to believe in the 21st century we have thousands of people in rural Washington County without access to safe drinking water. Yeah, it's a big project. It's going to take a lot to get it done, but if you don't start, you'll never finish. And as our chairman currently says repeatedly, if we'd have started back in 2000, we'd be just about finished now, and everybody would have clean drinking water. Roads, we have the best roads in the state. We have a great road superintendent and a good plan. Broadband, absolutely critical, another component of infrastructure. We're on our way to giving rural areas that have no service and no access to broadband, high-quality broadband service.
Thank you. Mr. Grandy, what responsibilities do county governments have to protect and improve public health, and what do you believe is the biggest health-related issues facing Washington County residents?
Are you kidding? We've just spent 2 years in COVID. We have, and a lot of people don't realize this because you have your own doctors and you don't necessarily rely on the health department. Washington County has an outstanding health department. It's a huge facility, do all sorts of health components, including dental in that facility. And we also have a great director. Our health department is part of a regional health department system. All 7 counties of the 8 in our First Tennessee Development District participate in the regional system that's governed by the state. Sullivan County is different. They have a unique health system, and we don't need to talk about that. But in Washington County, this health department sees thousands and thousands of people. The county, the state supplies funding for it. Our local county supplies funding for it. What's the greatest health concern? We have, again, come through this COVID, and I think that, just trying to deal with what's right there in front of us. During COVID, the health department was instrumental in vaccinating our citizens. Washington County was always top in the state in the percentage of our citizens that were vaccinated from the beginning to the end. Coordinated effort through our emergency management department with regional health, local health, police department, sheriff's department, and getting these vaccines out to people who wanted them. Without having people wait in line for 6 or 8 hours, amazing. The testing, they do testing. They have test kits. They've made test kits available for the citizens. So I think supporting a health department and understanding what it does is critical, and getting this COVID behind us is really going to be a great thing. I just spoke with Frances over there a few minutes ago, and she said, really, isn't it nice to be in a room where you don't everybody doesn't have to have a mask? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Tester.
Well, my counterpart talked about the health department. He covered that, and I think water lines are something that are related to public health. We have an environmental court that I think handles issues like that is related to public health. Public health is an interesting topic when you talk about government. I feel like it's kind of a slippery slope. It's easy for government to get involved in things that maybe it shouldn't in terms of people's health. I feel like your health is your business, and your health decisions are yours between you and your doctor. And he talked about COVID, and I'll say that I really was upset during COVID a lot of times. COVID has been a very tragic thing. It's been very sad. I think at this point we've all known somebody that's probably passed away with it, been sick with it. Most of us in the room probably have had it. But government's response to COVID, I feel like we saw a lot of government overreach. I really do, especially from executive branches. I don't feel like it's the role of the executive branch of government to make laws or to tell everybody what to do. We don't have kings in America. The presidents, the mayors, the governors, these executive orders that they issued. My counterpart issued a stay-at-home order, executive order, which I don't agree with. I don't feel like that's the proper role. I feel like the executive orders are meant for executive branch employees. That's who they should be for. So if I was elected mayor, I would not be issuing any executive orders that tell you to stay at home or that differentiate between essential or not essential and all that kind of stuff. As I said, public health is a slippery slope, I feel like, sometimes, and we have to be really careful about government's role in it.
Thank you. Next question's to you. How can the county attract new residents, and how could it improve the quality of life for the people already living here?
Well, we have a lot of people moving here right now. And I think a lot of the reason they're moving here is because we have great amenities here. We've got outdoor resources. We've got great culture and great people. We have low taxes. We have low cost of living. There's a lot that has to do with our government, I think, that plays into people moving here. There are tons of people, as I've been campaigning and talking to people and knocking on doors and things, and I've heard from other people too. There are so many people moving here. I'm calling them political refugees. They're moving here from California, from New Jersey, from New York, from Illinois. They're moving here because of our government system, because, Tennessee has a very conservative government system. We have no income tax. We're one of the most fiscally conservative and in good shape financially states. This area, we have a lot going for us, as I said. I think we can continue to do what we're doing and try to improve on it. We can try to keep our taxes low. We can try to do what we can in terms of our budget, like we were talking about earlier. We have a lot of constraints on our finances right now with our income and our revenue. But we can see what we can do, and we can do our best to don't borrow money. We're paying $13 million a year, I think, right now in debt service. What could $13 million a year do to help provide amenities that would make it a nicer place to live, or lower the tax rate? $13 million is a lot of money every year that's going towards paying our debt. So I think we need to keep in mind that people are moving here because it's conservative. They're trying to get away from a lot of the craziness that's going on in other parts of the country. And I think we need to keep that in mind, and that we don't move down a slippery slope towards the things that they're moving away from in those areas.
Thank you. Mr. Grandy, same question.
Washington County is blessed to have been the only county that had any significant growth in the last decade, according to the census. There's something about Washington County that makes that a reality. Exactly what that is. A lot of it is the people who live here, because we're special people, we're friendly people. You're in maybe one of the most friendly towns in the entire country right here in Jonesboro. You can walk up and down the street almost any day of the week and meet people from any place in the country, or in some cases around the world. We have a storytelling festival that is world-renowned. The governor came and launched the 225th year celebration right here in Jonesboro. And he did that for a reason, because Jonesboro is a special town. It's the oldest city in the state. Washington County is the oldest county in the state. We have a great history here, and we have a great story to tell. You know, it's not hard to attract people to this community. We have beautiful scenery, we have great water, we have a lot of really positive things. One of the things that is important is to get the word out. And we, as a region, need to come together and market all of the assets in the region, because we have, when you collectively put it together, we have great history, from David Crockett's birthplace to the oldest city in the state. We have great culture with the music, the country music Hall of Fame in Bristol, to the bluegrass of East Tennessee State University. And we have outdoor recreations that are amazing, that we don't even really have to put much investment in. We just have to make them available for people to use. Rafting, fishing. We have some of the finest trout streams in the entire country, right here in East Tennessee. It's amazing. The quality of life is phenomenal, and we really just need to tell our story a little more to the rest of the world. We've had good growth. Washington County is the leader in so many things. We're the leader in growth. We're the leader in building permits. We have a lot of people moving here. We don't really need to do anything to get people to move here except tell our story. Thanks.
Thank you. The county commission has recently been talking about late fees that the county's been charged. What's the best way to avoid those late fees?
So, one of the things about county government, it's amazingly diverse. In our government in Washington County, we'll process 12,000 individual invoices in a calendar year, $72 million worth of payables. We have a really good system right now, and I just got this today, and it may be of interest to you. I'm just going to read something real quick to you. One of the things that, when there was some discussion made about late fees and payables and so forth, you know, we have been tracking this. We have a system in place that deals with it, but we brought in outside experts. And so this came in just today from the County Technical Assistance Services Group. And what they said in summary about Washington County is that Washington County has streamlined the process of utility bill payment since 2019. Invoices are received by the purchasing department instead of some utility invoices being sent to the location or user department. Washington County is working towards all utility bills being sent directly via email to the finance department, and invoices are now processed daily instead of weekly. Having utility bills sent via email billing system to the finance department should reduce the amount of time to process payment, et cetera, et cetera. If feasible, a full electronic utility payment system that Washington County is currently researching may also further reduce the amount of time to process payment of utility bills. We talked earlier about 7 distinct offices in Washington County, 6 others besides for my office. Before invoices can be paid, they have to be approved by the individual office holders. That's part of their responsibility. Each office holder has its own budget, and they're responsible for billings that come into their department. So the old way in county government was the paper just either went directly to them or it came into the central accounting office. It was picked up and taken back into the individual office holders' approval, and then it came back. It's amazing to me, with a crazy system like that we ever got anything paid. But almost all of them do every time, rarely or late, but occasionally in $72 million worth of payments and 12,000 invoices in a year, occasionally one will slip by. This electronic system that we are putting in place now will digitize all that, and so these invoices never leave the central payment office, and I believe that's going to, just like this report said, is going to take care of the situation.
Thank you. Mr. Chester.
Well, everything he said sounds great, and I hope they get it fixed. Why we can't pay our bills on time, I mean, yeah, it's a complicated system, but from what I understand, it didn't happen this much before. So I'm not quite sure why it's been such a big issue lately. Changing the process, as I said earlier, I'm an engineer, and I'm very logical, left-brained. I analyze problems, try to figure out simple, efficient solutions. And also, part of being an engineer is you're always looking at everything, trying to figure out how you can make it better. It's almost a curse in a way, I think, because you walk in a room and you look up at the roof, or you're like, what can we do to improve this? So I hope that we get this bill paying problem fixed in like yesterday. But if I'm elected mayor and it's still going on, then I will do my best to analyze the problem and get it fixed.
Thank you. And I think we've got time for one more question. What opportunities does Washington County have to cooperate with our neighbor counties to meet regional goals?
Well, I think there's plenty of things that we can do to, communicate, I guess, with our counties around us and cities around us. Think about things that we can do. He talked earlier about there's so many great things about this area, but it's just a matter of telling our story and marketing it. So I think that's something we can do together. I think we also have to be a little bit careful because, I don't know if anybody else has heard anything about this, but I've heard something going around about the idea of consolidating Sullivan and Washington counties into a big metro region. I don't agree with that idea at all. How long has Washington County been around? It's our identity. It's our county. As I said earlier, I believe in small, limited government. Why would we want to do that? We want to keep our government representing as small a number of people as possible. That's small government because then the people are closest to their representatives. I think we can cooperate. We can be good neighbors. We can communicate. But, should we consolidate together into a big region or something like that? No, I don't think so.
Thank you. Mr. Grandy, same question.
And it is?
It is, what opportunities does Washington County have to cooperate with our neighbor counties to meet regional goals?
Well, I tell you, that's certainly one thing that I've spent a lot of time working on over more than just a decade or two, but definitely in the last 3 years. Mayor Venable of Sullivan County and I have we had a joint commission meeting that sort of started off our terms, where the joint commissions agreed to work together cooperatively in a region in order to promote activities that are better dealt with as a region. And one of the things that we identified right away was workforce. Workforce is not just a county issue. if Eastman employs workers from every county in Northeast Tennessee, plus Southwest Virginia, plus Kentucky, nuclear fuel, same way. If you're out on the interstate in the morning, you'll see traffic moving in both directions. People come from Carter County to work here. Washington County people work in Carter County. Workforce is a definite regional issue, and so now that we have workforce concerns, we have to tackle them as a region, not just as an individual county. Marketing the region to the outside world as an area, Northeast Tennessee as an area of over 500,000 people, puts us competitive in markets that are like Knoxville or Chattanooga or Charlotte or Richmond or Greensboro, some of these other places where we're competing for business development and that sort of thing. We, as a county of 133,000 people, do not get the attention in the outside market that we do as a region of over 500,000. It just changes the dynamics entirely. Developing entrepreneurs is a key incentive going forward for this region. Keeping our best and brightest here is critical to Northeast Tennessee, and that can be accomplished better if we work cooperatively as a region. Certainly tourism, bringing people from outside of the area to spend their money here, again, definitely a regional project. So I've invested a lot of time and energy in it. We're making progress. Within the next week, you'll see a big announcement, and I hope you can appreciate the impact it's going to have on our region. Thank you.
Thank you. And if you'd like a closing statement, you have 5 minutes.
That'll be me.
Starting with you.
Okie dokie. Well, I believe tonight you've seen a contrast between mayor choices, and it should be quite clear. Abstaining is a no vote. Voting no is not leadership. I bring over 3 decades of leadership and management experience to my current role as mayor. I bring ideas, opportunities, and a plan. Voting against the recognition of our veterans who died in service over the cost of a $300 sign is a disgrace. Voting against recognizing Reverend Billy Graham at our exit 24 interchange on I-26 where his family enters our community is embarrassing. I love Billy Graham and welcome his family to our county. Voting against a desperately needed school is not in the best interest of our county or those kids who deserve a quality environment to learn. Voting against supporting our county's largest business of agriculture and the improvement of our local food supply chain, that doesn't even make sense. It's easy to take a no position as one of 15 members on a county commission when the issue is going to pass anyway. As mayor, leadership is critical. Let's not replace leadership with service. There are many people in our county government who provide service. Washington County has only one mayor, and he has to be a leader. You know, there's no limit to what some people can imagine when they're spending your money. I will hold the line and keep us on the path of conservative financial management while investing in future-focused projects with a high return on investment that won't break the bank. I've done what I said I would do, and I'll keep doing it. You can trust what I'll do in a second term because you can see what I've done in the first term. And what I've done is what I said I would do. But stewardship isn't just about paying down debt. It's about less debt and a longer vision. Fundamentally, it's future-focused leadership. While paying down debt, we haven't stopped thinking about tomorrow. We're making huge strides in improved school facilities, expanding vocational education, so our workforce will be ready for better-paying jobs, creating a regional addiction rehab center, extending safe, reliable drinking water, connecting rural areas with fast broadband internet, and a regional meat processing center that will help fight inflation, keep local money here, support our farmers, and establish a secure supply chain for locally grown beef. You may not have heard about some of these initiatives, but a conservative approach to government is rarely exciting. Good government rarely makes headlines. A conservative approach means limiting government to doing only certain things and then doing them efficiently and effectively. So if the courthouse isn't top of mind, that's not a bad thing. County government shouldn't aspire to fix all your problems. It should provide the infrastructure, education, and opportunity essential to a strong economy and healthy community, and then get out of the way. And it should do that in a responsible way that won't limit the opportunities available to future generations. It's about less debt and a longer vision. Leadership still means stewardship. Thank you.
Thank you. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Tester.
I want to finish up tonight by talking about our campaign slogans and our records. My slogan is consistent conservative service. And the word leadership is there, but it's crossed out and replaced with the word service. Consistent and conservative are my political beliefs and my record. I want to talk to you a little bit about the service part. I believe strongly that elected positions are called public service for a reason. I have a heart for service. I believe government should work for the people, not the other way around. Our Declaration of Independence says that government derives its just powers from the consent of the governed. So in our country, the people really hold the power, not the government. We get that upside down, I feel like, a lot of times when we think about that. I also think we get the concept of leadership upside down a lot of times when we think about it. To me, the best model for leadership is one of service. I'm a Christian. I believe and think that that's a biblical principle. The first shall be last, the last shall be first. We're supposed to love others, be kind to others, be respectful, serve others. We're supposed to think of others more highly than ourselves. I don't think it's a very effective form of leadership if someone tries to force or coerce people to follow them. It doesn't work very well. But if somebody tries to live in a way that other people want to follow them or emulate them, if they lead by example, to me, that's the best model of leadership, service. Now, his slogan, less debt, longer vision, leadership means stewardship. I agree 100% with every word of that. But I want to contrast our voting records. We were on the commission together for 4 years, from 2014 to 2018. I've got several resolutions here that we both voted on. This one, 2016, was a 20% property tax increase. I made a motion during the meeting to try to make the increase smaller. My motion failed. He made a motion to pass the 20% property tax increase. He voted for it, and I voted no, obviously. This one's from 2017. This is our debt management policy. We have an internal debt limit at the county. It's a threshold or a limit number that's net debt per capita. This was increasing our internal debt limit by 19%. Again, he made the motion and he voted for it. I voted against it. It was a no vote, but I was the only no on the commission to raising our debt limit. These six I'm going to lump together. They were in May of 2017. About a year before he first ran for mayor, talking about let's have less debt. These all have to do with bonds and borrowing. In 2017, we borrowed about $32 million. If you look at our current debt, our official number, it's about the same ballpark, a little bit less, but ballpark the same as it was 4 or 5 years ago, before we borrowed all this. All six of these, he made the motion for it, he voted for it. I didn't vote for any of them. I voted no on 3 of them. I was the only no vote. The other 3 that got me as absent, but really I abstained. Again, well, let me explain the abstain there. The company I work for had done work for the county and the school board for many years, design work, architectural and engineering design work. They did it for many years before I ever even went to work there or before I was on county commission. So I was very careful when I got on county commission. I was open about where I worked. It was on my flyers when I ran. It's on my flyers and my website now. I was very careful not to vote for anything that had anything to do with the company I worked for or to help, I didn't do anything to influence to help bring work to the company I worked for. So I would always abstain, and I would even read a statement if it was directly related to the company I worked for, and I would go out in the hall while they were talking about it, and I would abstain. So they counted me absent on here, but if you look at the minutes of the meeting, I was there, and I abstained. So the point is, he voted for a whole bunch of debt and made motions for it. And the 172 that he said was there when he ran for mayor last year, it was there. 32 million of it was done the year before he ran for mayor, and he voted for all of it. If we added in what will owe for the Jonesboro project right now, we would owe about 190 million. So we've been led into owing what, as far as I know, is a record high amount for Washington County. I'm not sure that meets the traditional meaning of the word stewardship or how conservative it is. I firmly believe the more engaged all of us are in our government, the better it serves all of us in the end. So let's correct our path back toward small, limited government and fiscal conservatism, and let's do it together. I humbly ask for your consideration, your support, and your vote. I appreciate your time tonight. God bless you, and God bless Washington County.
Thank you, and thank you both for being here. Let's give them a round of applause. All right, we'll take a quick reset, and we'll be back with the sheriff candidates, so stay tuned.
Yeah, it's one of the 8. Thank y'all. Appreciate you.
Please find your seats. Please find your seats. We're getting ready to go here. All right. Again, thank you very much for coming out to the Press's Candidates Forums tonight. This is our last one on the docket. We are covering the Republican primary for the sheriff's race. With us, we have Lita Lightnin, Keith Sexton, and Michael Templeton. The format, again, we're going to start with opening statements. We'll do 3 minutes each for the candidates. We'll move on to questions, 3 minutes a question per candidate. And then we'll go to closing statements. It's going to be 5 minutes for closing statements. Please, please don't react to any of the answers that the candidates give up here. We want to give them all of their allotted time, and hold your applause until the end. Thank you. So, Ms. Lightning, we'll start with you. Your opening statement, please.
Is the mic on? I guess that is. Thank you. Well, good evening. I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight, and I appreciate the Johnson City Press hosting the forum for us all to come and speak to you tonight. As he said, I'm Lita Lightnin, and if you haven't figured it out, I'm running for sheriff in Washington County. I'm a proud graduate from ETSU, where I received my bachelor's degree. I was one of 3 females in a class of 50 when I went to the police academy, where I was presented with the Leadership Award upon graduation. I started with the department on my 28th birthday in 1995. That was 27 years ago, so I just told my age, but I can't believe it's been that long. It's gone by very quickly. I'm very proud of my service in law enforcement. I started as a human resources clerk and worked my way up the ladder. I served most of my career as the chief operations officer. I was responsible for the jail, the warrants, records, our IT department, our budget, pretty much all of the administrative functions until I was promoted to chief deputy in 2017. I still had all of my previous responsibilities, but after my promotion to chief deputy, I assumed patrol, CID, and the court security officers. I was honored to serve as chief deputy for the last 4 years, but I still have more to do. I still have more to offer and still have more that I want to accomplish. I want the opportunity to lead the sheriff's department to the next level. A lieutenant I worked with and have a great amount of respect for once told me, "Chief, you make things happen." It was a huge compliment, and it's the truth. With a good team, I was always looking for ways to make the department better. As chief deputy, I was able to get our officers' pay raised significantly. I got our officers body cameras and in-car cameras. I got more practical Class B uniforms for the officers. And I constantly looked at new technology and acquired anything we could to make our officers' jobs easier. We recently purchased a new records management system for the department, and it has the potential to streamline our processes and make the jobs of everybody in that department a whole lot easier. But as sheriff, I will make even more things happen. I want to have our department involved with our communities like never before. We should have representation at all of our Ruritan and church meetings when possible. Lord knows most of us running for office have sure been at all the Ruritans lately. That doesn't need to stop once we're elected. A sheriff wears a lot of hats, and the legal administrative responsibilities are enormous. That's why more than ever, Washington County needs a sheriff who can hit the ground running, and that person is me. I'm excited about the opportunities that lie ahead, the opportunity to bring a wave of new ideas and make positive change. But more than anything for me, it's about the people. I care about the citizens of Washington County, and I care about the employees of the Sheriff's Office. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sexton.
Thank you. Thank the opportunity to be here tonight to speak to you and everyone that come out. I'm Keith Sexton, and on November the 22nd of last year, I was appointed the interim sheriff of Washington County unanimously. No one else received even a nomination. I'm a 31-year veteran of law enforcement. I have a tremendous amount of experience and knowledge in real-world leadership, proven leadership in law enforcement. I've worked for 2 different departments. I started my career in 1991 for the Sheriff's Office. I worked through 3 sheriffs, worked my way up from patrol officer to lieutenant. I was in the patrol division, criminal investigations, narcotics investigations, training, and special operations. I left the Sheriff's Office in 2008, and I went to the Johnson City Police Department. I started all over. Again, worked my way up from patrol officer, sergeant, lieutenant, criminal investigations, worked for the DEA, doing drug investigations, special operations, bomb squad commander, and training. I hold many instructor certifications. I'm a master instructor certified by the Post Commission. I've led police officers in real-world situations. I have a tremendous amount of experience. There's not a street or county road that I haven't either answered a call on or done some kind of law enforcement action. More importantly, I'm your neighbor. I want the same things that you do. I want safe streets. I want safe schools. I want to see more people out on patrol. And I've actually been there doing that. I've spent my life here. I went to Washington County Schools. I graduated in 1987. I have a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. I have a lot of leadership training. And more importantly, I've actually done the job here in Washington County because I believe that every police officer is a public servant. You won't last long in policing if you don't have a public servant's heart out there on patrol. I can say that I have literally shed blood, sweat, and tears in this job. This is my calling. I know that this is what God wants me to do. And I ask for an opportunity to continue to do so after May, and I thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Templeton, please.
Good evening. First, I'd like to thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ for this, for the blessings He's bestowed upon me, for me to be here tonight. I'd like to say hello to my wife, who's home tonight. Married a girl I've known since the 6th grade. She's a 5th-generation Washington County girl from Eastern Star. You're not a stakeholder in Washington County unless you've got a street named after you. We got that covered through my wife. I'm a graduate of East Tennessee State University, an honors graduate with a bachelor's of business administration, a major in accounting. I applied for the Johnson City Police Department after college. At that time, there's 110 applicants, and they ranked you after going through an assessment center. I was able to, through God's grace, rank number 1 out of 110 people. I was hired by the city of Johnson City and sent to the State Police Academy in Donaldson near Nashville. About 50 people were there from all around the state. I graduated first in my class, received the Tennessee Sheriff's Association award for doing that, and I was also voted vice president of my class. Came back and worked for Johnson City for 4 years, 3 years on patrol. I was also on the SWAT team. My 4th year, I was assigned to the 1st Judicial Drug Task Force. At that time, I Had long hair, had a ponytail, an earring, drove a Mustang, kept $1,000 in a tape recorder in my pocket, and did 3 drug deals a day. After 4 years with Johnson City, I was hired by the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration as a special agent, and I've done that for the last 25 years. Out of those 25 years, about 10 of that was here in Johnson City, where I served the 10 counties of Upper East Tennessee from our office in Johnson City. I routinely took detectives from Washington County Sheriff's Department under my wing on surveillance and started from the ground up on a traffic stop in Boones Creek. Took detectives to Houston, Texas, chasing cartel, and eventually all the way to the U.S.-Mexican border in McAllen, Texas, indicting cartel members in Greenville, Tennessee. After 10 years, after I got my daughter through Daniel Boone, I knew that my family was situated. I raised my hand. The war on terror was already going after 9/11. I wanted to serve my country more than what I was doing. And so I raised my hand. I volunteered to go to Pakistan. At that time, DEA had about offices in 70 countries. So I spent 2 years in Pakistan, Islamabad, Pakistan, working with the DEA in conjunction with U.S. military, combating drugs coming out of Afghanistan. I was working in that office when they killed bin Laden. I certainly had no idea about it. I found out like you did. Years later, I raised my hand again and went to Afghanistan, where I just served 2.5 years in Afghanistan with the DEA. My job there was a liaison officer between DEA and U.S. Special Operations Forces targeting ISIS, the Taliban, and Al-Qaeda. And you saw what happened. The country collapsed. I was home on vacation when that happened. I heard that the opportunity was coming up to run for sheriff. I have a servant's heart, and I want to continue to serve my community, and I want to do that here at home. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we're going to start with you on the next one, Mr. Sexton. We're moving on to the questions. So, what are the most important issues the next sheriff will face in the next 4 years?
That's a big question. The most important issues that I see are that we need more officers out there doing the job. We don't have enough people in your community. That's every day these officers go to work, they make a difference. But safety comes from having visibility and having people out there who can answer the calls, quick response times. Right now, you basically have one officer. If you drive down 11E, once you get out of the city limits of Jonesboro and you look to the left, from there to Greene County, over to the mountains of Unicoi County and Greene County line is one officer. It's been that way for decades. It shouldn't be that way. We've got to get more people out here enforcing the law. You don't have to be a DEA agent or an FBI agent, or just watch the news and you can figure out that we have a drug problem just like the rest of the United States does. We have to have more emphasis on working drugs. The only way that that's going to happen for Washington County in the near future is to train up our police officers to look beyond the ticket, to address the needs of the community immediately. You know, I'm sure that each of y'all have seen the house in your neighborhood where cars come and go every night, all hours of the night, pull in for 5 minutes and they leave. That we call that a criminal indicator. We can do something about that, but you got to have the people out there to do it. The other thing is we need to, we've got to pay these officers more. We've got to get their level of training up. You know, true quality never goes on sale. You can't go to Walmart and buy a Rolex watch. If you want quality, you're going to have to pay for it, and we can do that. There's money in the budget right now. I'm 16 officers short on the patrol side. I don't have to ask for any more money. I can hire the officers. I've already hired several since I started. We have to have that visibility. Since December 1st, we've made 40 drug arrests just off of patrol alone. 26 of those, methamphetamine. It's no surprise to anyone. We know where the meth is coming from. It's from Mexico. We have to work with the federal agencies to shut them down. I've done that. I've taken drug trafficking organizations out of Washington County and Johnson City. I have the knowledge it will take to do that. But going back to the training and pay issue, you get what you pay for. We have some highly dedicated professional individuals working at the Sheriff's Department. I'm going to do everything that I can do to support them to be successful at what we need them to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Templeton, same question.
Yeah, so the drug problem is out of control in Washington County. Since the inception of Washington County in 1777, we have never had a drug unit. We've always been left to fend on our own. If you leave it up to the federal government, let me explain something to you. The DEA has 2 agents sitting in Johnson City. They cover 10 counties. That's not serving Washington County. We have to take care of ourselves. It's time for self-governance and quit relying on the federal government. The first thing I'm going to do when I enter the sheriff's office is stand up a drug unit. It's through intelligence-based policing with plainclothes detectives that are working drugs through my leadership. Drug dealers are not afraid of people in uniforms. They watch them drive by and they do their drug deals. So we're going to attack the drug problem through intelligence-based policing, where every deputy is responsible not for writing tickets, but for bringing intelligence from all 4 corners of the county into that drug unit and working back out with patrol and plainclothes people, men and women, to attack the drug problem. Tennessee is between 1 and 2 leads the country in opioid addiction. We had last year, in the 2020, had a 45% increase in deaths related to fentanyl. In 2020, we had over 3,000 Tennesseans die from fentanyl-related opioid. In the same year, 100,000 Americans died. We have an open border policy by the Biden administration where that fentanyl, fake oxycodone, and Xanax pills are flooding into the Mexican border to Atlanta and straight into Washington County. Now, you can arrest all the users you want. That's not going to solve the problem. That's not what I'm going to do. The users need help. We need to extend our hand out to the users to give them a helping hand so they know that their families know what resources are available to them. We need to cut the head off the snake. We need to go after the people who are profiting off the addiction and profiting off the backs of the people in Washington County who are suffering. They've suffered way too long, and that's what I intend to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Leitnan.
I don't think anybody up here would argue with the fact that we have a drug problem in Washington County. But I think I have to agree with Mr. Templeton. You can't go after the users and think we're just going to erase the problem. We have to trace the money. We have to trace the dealers. You have to share intelligence. One thing I've learned working with officers for 25 years, they get information and they want to hold it to themselves. They don't want to share with other agencies. They don't want to. There's no trust. They want to be the one to make that big bust, and we've got to change that way of thinking. Officers have to share that intelligence with each other. Carter County's got a great program in place with their sheriff's office that shares their intelligence and allows them to track who's talking to who's going where. It's a pretty amazing piece of software, and I think the U.S. government actually put it in place, but that was something that we were looking to partner with them to share information between agencies all across the region and who the dealers are. Staffing is always an issue. Yes, we need more officers on the road. Our county's 330 square miles, and there's probably, on a good night, 5 to 7 officers. If you don't have anybody out sick or anybody out hurt or having a baby, and that's not safe, and it's not fair to those officers to have to work under those conditions. They do it willingly, and we do have a great group of officers who make a lot of sacrifices, but we can make it better. I think we need to look at the staffing in the jail, definitely. The jail should be the biggest concern, or is the biggest concern, unfortunately, for any sheriff. If you just had to do patrol in the courts, you might get a little bit of sleep at night. But the jail staffing situation, you can't just hire anybody who walks in the door. It takes a special person to do that job, just like it takes a special person to be a patrolman and a special person to be a school resource officer. There's some officers that are wonderful patrolmen, but I can't put them in a school. They just don't work with that environment. But I definitely think we've got to work on the pay. We have great benefits in Washington County, thanks to our commissioners, and that helps a lot with getting people to want to come to Washington County and stay. But I also believe that people stay because of how they're treated and if they're appreciated or not, or if they feel like the administration has their back and there's not intimidation through the halls.
Thank you. We'll start with you this time, Mr. Templeton. How would you address staffing shortages and pay inequities and improve employee morale on both the patrol side and in the county detention center?
I'll address the second part of your question immediately. All the sheriff can do as an executive position is ask the county commission to increase budgets. If we're going to be serious about the crime problem in Washington County, we have to be able to articulate to the public, which, by the way, is represented by the county commission. There's a handful of them. We have to articulate why we need pay increases. I can't raise pay for the sheriff's department, but we need to understand that in the state of Tennessee, and this is a TBI fact, it's the first thing on their webpage, is that 80% of the crimes in the state of Tennessee are drug related. If you don't address the drug problem, you're not going to address the crime problem. Now, as for morale, listen, when I started working for the Johnson City Police Department, I think I made $18,500 a year. When I left 4 years later, I made $22,500 a year. When I applied for the DEA, I had no idea what the salary was going to be. I just wanted to follow my heart and follow what I thought God was wanting to do. That's the kind of people we want. We're never going to increase pay raises for teachers and public employees and police officers and nurses to the level that they truly deserve. That's for NFL people who take a knee for the flag. They're getting all this money and they're taking a knee for our flag. What I want to do is I want to recruit the people who love our country, particularly veterans of the war on terror. These people are solid men and women who understand intelligence and how to collect it and how to disseminate it. But in order to increase morale, recruit great people, it takes a great leader that somebody wants to work for. I've worked for many people throughout my life, some good, some bad. The best leaders are the ones that appreciated you for who you were, let you do your job, and only intervene when they thought you were going to fall off a cliff or help guide you the way, not be a micromanager. But folks in Washington County, young and old, if you have a servant's heart, you could be a retired police officer that moved here from Georgia and you want to continue to work, that you have 15, 20 years experience. That's who I'm looking for, is people with a servant's heart. I wish I could say I'm going to give you the salary of an NFL player, but that's not who we are. The quality of life is based on serving others. That's it. Now that's what I've told my daughter. If you chase the money, you're never going to be happy in life. But living a full life is only through the service of others. That's not me. That's Socrates. But that's true. And that's the kind of people I want. So if you're ready to serve others in your community, and I'm going to get to this in my closing, I've got an opportunity for you. So stick around for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Leiden.
Morale has always been an issue with law enforcement. It's up and down. I like to think it's up more than it's down. COVID was very hard on our department. We had officers working very long hours. We had at one point we had a whole shift out with COVID. We were scrambling, worrying about how we were going to cover things, and those officers step up. You don't even have to ask them or demand it. They step up to the plate and they do the job and they do what has to get done. I think as long as they feel like you have their back and that they're appreciated, that means a lot to them. They didn't get into this to get rich. No cop ever does. But they do it because they love the job and they love what they do. But they have to feel like they matter. They have to feel like they're not just another number on the manifest. I believe that it's always going to be an issue with staffing, and until we pay. I agree you can't chase the dollar, but officers have to be able to pay their bills without working 3 other jobs on their 7-day break. That's hard on them. They have no family time. They have no downtime to just recover from a rough shift or a rough 4-night shifts. But I think the more we can make the work environment better for them, try to make the schedules a little bit better for them. Some of the on-call schedules for the sheriff's office are really tough. The court services that are on call for medical transports and taking people to mental facilities, their call schedule is extremely difficult. I have very good officers who work in the jail and are ready to go to be promoted, but they don't want to work that call schedule because they they know how difficult it is.
Thank you. Mr. Sexton.
Yes, sir. Will you repeat the question?
I will. How would you address the staffing shortages and pay inequities and improve employee morale on both the patrol side and in the county detention center?
So when I took over as sheriff, we were 28 people short inside the jail and around 16 or 17 short on patrol. There was, it was amazing to me that there was this gap. How do you let it get 28 short? Do you start worrying at 3? Do you start worrying at 5, 10? How do you get 28 short? And with no real emphasis to fill it. Within 3 weeks, I filled the gap. I hired around 28 people, and I sped up the training program. And while that may not always be ideal, when you walk in the first roll call you walk into, and your employees look like war veterans because they're just worked to death. Their comp time totals are just over the roof. We have the total debt for vacation alone in the sheriff's department is $1.3 million because they don't have to take vacation because they always have comp time. People, you lead people and you manage things. People want to be led by somebody who's been there, who's done that, who they trust, who they know has a reputation of not asking people to do things that they're not willing to do. They've made the same sacrifices. They've worked the midnight shifts. They've missed the ball games with their kids. That's leadership. And even as a sheriff, since I took office, when we have something serious, you can ask the people, some of the people I work with are sitting right back here in this audience. If something's going on, I'm there. And I'm not there just to watch. I'm there to jump in and help because I can. Morale, I feel safe in saying because I've had many officers on both sides of the table, on the detention side and on the sworn side, have told me, we appreciate what you've done. You let us do our job. It's nice to come to work and not feel like somebody's breathing down my neck. Again, we have trained professionals at the sheriff's office. All I've done is said, go forth and do your job, and I'm going to support you, and I'll be right there beside you as you do it. There's people in this crowd right here that have worked with me at the Johnson City Police Department. They know that I mean what I say. I've done it for 31 years. That's the way I lead. Leadership comes from the front. Again, you can manage things, and you have to lead people. You can be a good manager, but not be a good leader. People respect those who have been there and done that, and I can say that that is me. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Leiden, you'll start us off for the next one. If elected, how will you ensure that the sheriff's office and its operations are transparent to the public?
Well, the law requires that we be transparent to the public. Anything that anybody wants to know, they can ask, they can call, or they can file a Freedom of Information Act through the county attorney's office. We have nothing to hide. Everything we do is with public monies. Everything is for public service. So, it's transparent by nature. I've never tried to hide anything from the media or my employees. I've always been up front with everything that we've done at the department. So, I would just continue, to be as transparent as we've always been.
Thank you. Mr. Sexton?
Transparency. I believe that as a sheriff, I don't believe it, I know it, I work for you. If you want to know something other than details of a criminal case, you should be able to get that. I don't have a bit of problem with that. I think I've shown since I came in office, we've opened up our social media. We do routine press releases. Used to, a press release had to go through every step of the way, the chain of command, from the patrol officer to the sheriff. That shouldn't be. These officers need to be proud of what they do. You want to know where money is being spent? I'll tell you. I'll show you. I think I've proven that in the media. Take the recent events, the ballot bill. Everybody, it's the white elephant in the room. But you can take Keith Sexton out of that whole situation, and you talk to Ballard, the people that's owed the money. You talk to Southern Health Partners that manages the medical, And this truth still stands. I wanted to be transparent about that. That's why I held a press conference. It's your money. Government has no money. It's your money that's being spent, whether it's being spent for the right reasons or not. And if you want to know, you should be able to get that really easy. And short of something being part of a criminal case that's ongoing, I'll tell you anything you want to know. I've got no secrets to hide. And that's the way that I've run this department. And that's the way I'll continue to run it. If you want to talk to me, come see me. We have opened up the jail. We've given, I don't know, I would say 25 jail tours since we took over, because we've had projects going on. We want people to see that we're being good stewards of their money. We're taking care of what you've entrusted us with. But more so than that, you get to see how the place is run. Here shortly, we're going to open up the ride-along program. I want people to see what these officers go through every day, because it never fails that when somebody rides, they'll get out of the car at the end of the shift and they'll say, I had no idea that this went on in Washington County. Or they'll say, I had no idea that you guys did all this. I'm very proud of this department. I've spent over half of my career in the sheriff's office. This is a plan for me for 20 years. So I've got nothing to hide, never have. And if you want to know something, I'm going to tell you the truth. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Templeton.
Thank you. Yeah, so 3 ways. Social media is certainly important. We will certainly continue that. I will do a rotation of the Ruitans throughout the year, not just during campaign season. We need to continue going to every Ruitan, American Legion and VFW, and civic organizations in Johnson City, their voters as well. And we need to, we'll have public forums just like this. People can come in and ask me questions, and I'll give you an honest answer. The third, and I think the most important thing, is we're going to have a civilian review board. I'm going to bring in some people from the community, from all walks of life, but especially from there's a lot of retired law enforcement officers that have moved here. So anytime there's an infraction that rises to the level that could be a misdemeanor or higher, that's been alleged by any of my employees, that civilian review board is going to see the same evidence that I see and make recommendations to me as the sheriff as to the guilt and also the punishment. Now, they're not the end-all say-so in what's going to happen, if anything, but it's transparency that the public knows what I know. No more hiding what's going on. If somebody makes an infraction, I don't care who it is, then the public will have an opportunity through this civilian review board to see the same thing that I see. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sexton, you're the first on this one. How will you work to make sure the people enforcing our laws and protecting our residents are the best suited to perform that important job?
Well, that comes from the day that they apply, doing a good background. And then after that, it's about training. We have to, me personally, I like hiring people who live in this county, who have grown up in this county, people who you know, because that gives a whole pool of good references, and we don't have to worry about what's this guy up to. Is he just some nut that wants a badge and a gun? Because they're out there. But we're doing good backgrounds, doing good employment investigations, making sure that you don't have someone working for you that has a criminal record. After that, send them to the academy. And I don't talk a lot about the academy. I was vice president of my academy class in Nashville because really, for me and for any police officer out there who's done the job, going to the academy is like reading your driver's handbook. You know, that's just the beginning. It doesn't really mean anything. It gives you a certificate that says you now can be a police officer and we can train you. After that academy, though, you got a good field training program, a good program where an officer rides with officers. And then after that, they're on probation for a year. If they mess up, you either discipline the person to standard or they need to leave. There's no keeping people with criminal records on your department. we're done with that. For me, this is a profession. I took an oath to do this profession, just as I did when I went in the military. That oath never expires, and I will hold every employee at the sheriff's office on the sworn side to that oath. Same as on the civilian side, on the detention side. You know, inmates are people, they are human beings, and they deserve to be treated like human beings. And the great majority of those inmates, they're not bad people. They've just had bad circumstances and made bad decisions that they got caught for. And, you know, my Bible teaches me, but for the grace of God, there go I. So you treat them like a human being. As long as they'll allow you to treat them good, you treat them good. The great majority, they're not bad people. We've got to look at training people up to look at people in jail on the civilian side, not just as things, they're people. We should live our lives in a manner that would make them want to be like us as soon as they get the next chance to. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Templeton, you're next.
Could you repeat the question, please?
I can. How will you work to make sure the people enforcing our laws and protecting our residents are best suited to perform that important job?
Well, it starts with recruitment. ETSUs, you know, I'm a graduate of ETSU. They have a criminal justice program. We need to recruit from ETSU. We need to identify those people and give them an opportunity to experience what Washington County Sheriff's Department does. Perhaps they want to work for us. I want to talk to them. There's people that put themselves through Walter State Community College the police program so that they're almost accredited. So if I hire them, they're ready to go. I know somebody that did that on their own expense, because they truly wanted to be a police officer, and that's what they did. But we need to start out with the children. Number one, so here's what I want to do. I want to start a program that Harris County, Texas has. Harris County is a big county that covers Houston, Texas. They have a junior mounted patrol, a junior mounted posse. So this is children aged 6 through 20, and we take children from throughout the county, all 4 counties, Jonesboro, Johnson City included. We teach them to love America, to love the Washington County. We teach them the history of Washington County dating back to when we were part of North Carolina. Talk about John Sevier and Daniel Boone. And then we teach them responsibility. As part of that junior mounted posse, it's going to be an equestrian drill team. So these kids, I'm going to work with local stables, 4-H, FFA, and we're going to teach these kids to be color guard, horseback color guard at Daniel Boone High School games. And you see the parade going down July 4th here in Jonesboro. Those are going to be my goodwill ambassadors representing the Sheriff's Department, riding down Main Street on horseback, carrying the colors. But these kids, if we teach them at an early age, they may want to be sheriff's deputies one day. That's my hope. We don't want to wait for just somebody to apply who's, as Keith said, we don't know who they are. We start with our own children here in Washington County and start grassroots. So I'm going to give parents out there, I know there's a lot of things out there for you, soccer. I've even talked to some parents that their kids are on lacrosse. I didn't know we had lacrosse in Washington County. But we certainly had FFA, 4-H, but this is a good chance to blend all those different resources within Washington County and bring those kids in to experience what Washington County Sheriff's Department has to offer, to love their county, to love the great state of Tennessee, and to maybe perhaps live that life of service. And we'll open up that door for them. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Leitner.
I believe it does start with your hiring process and your background checks, and you do the best you can do to make sure that the people you're looking at are qualified and want to do this job for the right reason. Sometimes, it's hard to tell somebody in their nature in a 30-minute interview or talking to their neighbors. A few slide by us, but for the most part, you have to really take those backgrounds seriously. I also believe it matters that you make it clear to them what your expectations as a leader are, that we don't mistreat people, that the laws are the same for everyone, that we don't pick and choose who has to follow which laws. They're for all of us. And I think if the officers know what's expected of them, it's always been my experience that they'll do their best to meet that expectation.
Thank you. And you'll start off, Mr. Templeton, on this next one. What roles should officers play when encountering individuals experiencing a mental health crisis, and what changes could be made to improve the outcomes of those encounters?
So I'll give you an example. I live a stone's throw from the historic district. My wife and I have 20 acres not far from here, and you got to cross a little limestone creek to get to our property. This past fall, my neighbor has 2 dogs, Great Pyrenees. And so the dogs are barking on each side of this bridge over a little limestone creek. And that creek comes up out of a spring about 100 yards north of there, and it's about 56 degrees, and this is in the fall. So there's a man with no clothes on in the creek, in the water, and the dogs are barking at him, and he's barking back at them. Certainly, he's experienced some kind of mental health crisis. So I live in the county by 10 feet. 2 deputies show up, and they explain to the homeowner that they're going to arrest this guy for public intoxication, which in turn he will spend 4 hours in lockup, and then which time he will be released. Now, for me, this person has obviously experienced some type of mental break or methamphetamine toxicity. I think that's what was happening. His body was overheating, and he felt the need to cool off. And methamphetamine also causes psychosis. So that individual should not have been taken to the jail. That individual should have been taken to the hospital, where he got, number one, stabilized by medical doctors to get treatment, and then there's people out there in organizations that would have come and talked to him about trying to get him help or get him in a facility where he could get some mental health problems. You can't arrest people through that. You have to have empathy, and you have to understand that when people are going through that, not only are they putting that person's life in jeopardy by taking him and putting him in a cold holding cell, you're also putting the sheriff's department and the county at large at risk of a huge liability if that person had died inside that jail or experienced a stroke or whatever. So it really comes down to common sense, and I will relay that to every deputy, that we're going to treat every person in this county as if they're our family, because they are. We all talk about, I go to all these campaign functions, and the first thing that every candidate, whether they're running for mayor or commissioner or sheriff, what do they say? Well, I'm a 6th generation Washington County. Well, okay, then that means we're all part of the same ecosystem. We're all part of the same happiness and problems and difficulties, and we all need to help each other. As deputies, we cannot look at people who happen to have a drug addiction or some type of mental incapacity as lesser than us. We have to be there to help them, and that's what I intend to do.
Thank you. Ms. Leitnan, same question. Yes. What roles should officers play when encountering individuals experiencing a mental health crisis, and what changes could be made to improve the outcomes of those encounters?
Well, we've certainly increased the amount of training for officers for mental health and the ability to recognize someone who's in a mental health crisis. And a lot of that, Mr. Templeton said, is sometimes it's meth-induced psychosis around here. We see it a lot, unfortunately. But the officers are trained a whole lot better now to recognize those things. We were we were the only jail in the area that had our own mental health licensed by the state professional who was able to see these people. She worked full-time for us. She did a great job. I could have used 3 more of her. But she was actually able to see these people, determine if they needed to be seen medically or if it was something we could handle in the jail, along with the medical staff too, of course. But she also is able to write a certificate of need if she felt like these people needed even further intense care, at a local, we don't have a local psychiatric facility anymore. Woodridge doesn't always take our patients sometimes. We usually have to take them to Moccasin Bend or somewhere, on the other side of the state. But we had a full-time person. I felt like that was very ingenuity. What's the word I'm thinking of? Intuitive, I guess, is the word. Intuitive of our department to hire somebody like that. I think all facilities, all jails need somebody like that.
Thank you. Mr. Sexton?
Repeat the question for me again.
I can.
Just so I hit it right angle.
What roles should officers play when encountering individuals experiencing a mental health crisis, and what changes could be made to improve the outcomes of those encounters?
Mental health is, in my opinion, in the criminal justice world, is just as serious nowadays as the drug problem is. I cannot tell you the number of times out on patrol when you meet people, especially in Johnson City where there's a large homeless population, where these people will break the law and you know that it's nothing more than the mental illness. They'll go to jail, they get on the right medication. When they leave, they'll get 3 days of medication. There's no plan for them. You can see them a week later when they're out of jail. They're still fine. They're average, ordinary people. You'll see them maybe 2 weeks later, and they're in mental crisis, and they commit a crime, and they go back to jail. And every time they go back to jail, they learn how to be a criminal. Sometimes they're even preyed upon inside the jail. It is a crisis. Just this past week, we had a lady who was arrested. The family, actually, my pastor at my church called me and said, didn't tell me a name, and he says, this lady, things have just gone bad. She's totally done a 180 from who she is. We think she may have a brain tumor. What can you do to get her to the hospital? Can you do a mental health intervention? And the sad thing is, by law, unless they're threatening to kill themselves, there's not much we can do on the law enforcement side. I'd seen it before, and I started waiting for it, and it took about a week, and sure enough, a domestic violence occurred, and she ended up in jail, and more people were calling. I immediately called our nursing staff, explained the situation to them. We got Frontier Health involved. I'm not sure which judge it was. We got a judge involved. We got her released from jail. She went to the hospital to make sure she didn't have any medical problems, and she's now receiving some psychiatric care. I know that there's people that we've missed. It shouldn't be. We are partnering with Southern Health Partners to take over the mental health issue at our jail. We have to train these officers to look beyond the arrest when it first happens. Just like I talked about looking beyond the ticket. Look beyond what is the real cause of this. We will do that through CIT training. I have a partnership with Northeast State to have them come in and teach a crisis intervention training. It's some of the best training I've ever seen, and we will be doing that very soon. As soon as we can get staffed up, that'll be the next priority. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think we've got time to squeeze one more question in. We'll start with you, Ms. Leitman. What challenges do incarcerated people suffering from addiction pose for the jail, and what can be done and should be done to help treat them?
Well, there are a lot of issues. People are coming to jail more sick, more addicted, and they're not always honest with us when they come in. They don't always tell us everything that they're on. They may not even remember everything that they're on. The biggest crisis and the biggest scare for us is that we miss somebody who's detoxing, or somebody who's not been honest with us, and they start detoxing. If they're honest with us, there are detox protocols in place. The nurses monitor them very closely to make sure that they get through that process not dangerously. A lot of alcohol and benzo detox is deadly. It can be deadly. It can cause seizures. But we have protocols in place for that, to watch for that. Depression, they are at very high risk for suicide in the facility. So we are training the officers to watch for that closer. But that is the huge majority of the people that come into the facility. They come in on something or coming down from something. So it is definitely an issue, and it's something that we stay on top of.
Thank you. Mr. Sexton.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yes, sir. What challenges do incarcerated people suffering from addiction pose for the jail, and what can be done and should be done to help treat them?
Addiction is taking over a lot of our community. I come from a family that is full of addiction to drugs and alcohol, domestic violence, and I'm not ashamed to say that because of it, at one time, I'm one of the few deputies that you'll ever hear say in a weekend, and I was a lieutenant at the sheriff's office, I had my mother in one cell, my brother in another. Now, I've seen the vicious cycle that takes place through drugs and addiction. Inside the jail, just like I talked about before, we see people get off drugs. There's just a whole different countenance about these people. They look at peace. They are happy. I can't tell you the number of inmates that I've spoken to who will tell you that they're thankful for the period of incarceration because it saved their life. It got them off the drugs. But the problem is there's no emphasis on doing anything once we turn them loose. They go right back to the same environment. They don't leave the jail with any new skill. They don't leave with anything other than they have to go right back to where they started. It poses a big problem for us. The recidivism is really high. We see, and I like to, in my opinion, we deal and see about 5% of the population 95% of the time inside the jail. It's the same ones, and addiction and alcoholism is a big part of that. It's hard on the medical staff. It's hard on the detention officers. It's a drain on the money that is set aside for medical needs. We have, and I don't care to tell you that for decades I was one of these people that said just throw them in jail and let them rot. I arrested people, put them in jail and leave them there. But the Lord got a hold of my heart, and we have to look. These are human beings. We have to have some emphasis on helping these people, help them to recover. Or we're going to have to build bigger, better jails. It's going to be money that comes out of your pockets, my pocket. That's not the answer. And you say, well, there's nothing you can do about it. You're wrong. Especially if that's what you're going to say about it. We have to say from this point forward, we're going to do something different. We've not done that yet. And what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result, and that's what we do. We have to look at that. And I will be looking into ways. I've spoken to people from mental health. I've spoken to Inside Alliance in Johnson City. We're working on programs. I've been there for 4 months. It's going to be an emphasis for me. It's important. These are human beings. We should, they matter. They matter just as much as we do. You can ask anybody. I'm big on enforcing the law, but at the same time, they're a victim of society, and we need to do something to change it for them. Thank you.
Mr. Templeton.
Thank you. So we've got to get faith-based treatment programs in the jail. I've already met with nonprofits here in Washington County who have grant money or seeking grant money that want to come into the jail and mentor and do a 12-step program with people on addiction. These people are former addicts who got hold of their life and through God's grace, through faith-based programs, and made something of their life and want to give back. At no cost to the county. We just have to make room and time for them to come in and talk to these people. At the same time, there needs to be follow-up. Not only follow-up, when a police officer or sheriff's deputy goes to a call domestic or whatever it is, they're going to notice the signs of drug addiction. It's very evident. There's poverty. The kids aren't taken care of. There's no food. There's no food there. Every deputy needs to know what resources are available so they can share that with the person who's going through crisis, in particular that family. The state of Tennessee's had a what's called the Red Line, a 1-800 number, for 33 years. You call that Red Line, you've got a card. Every deputy have a card, Tennessee Red Line. And if they call that number and tell them what zip code they live in, they will give them every resource and phone number available so they can seek treatment or the families of the person who is addicted can seek help, because the families need guidance too. I have personally seen how drugs rip apart families. A lot of parents get pulled into thinking that they're loving their kid by giving them a cell phone and money. Well, he just needs money to get medicine. I've even seen parents start talking about illicit drugs as medicine when their kids are buying oxycodone off the street. Now, fentanyl-laced fake pills, the parents actually give them the money and they start blaming the doctor and they give them money to get drugs off the street. So the family needs counseling too. So it needs to start from when the deputy first arrives on the scene somewhere in the jail with faith-based programs at no cost to the county, and then follow up with those people, those faith-based programs, and churches. We have lots of churches in Washington County that want to help. Follow up with those, identify those families who are under duress, seek out those kids in schools, in Washington County schools, who are obviously way behind in school. They're coming in with the dirty clothes and same shoes every day that are dirty. There's ways to identify addiction in Washington County, and I believe that it's only through God's grace that we can help the people in our county, and that's through faith-based programs. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to closing statements now. Mr. Sexton, we'll start with you. Again, each of you will have 5 minutes.
Okay. First, I thank y'all for listening to everything we had to say tonight. I've been sheriff for 4 months. I was handed a lot of problems, and we're dealing with it. We're fixing it. My commitment to you is I want to see law enforcement in Washington County. When I first started into this, I've planned to run for sheriff for over 20 years. You can ask some of these guys that used to work with me. My first training officer is sitting right back there. I said in 2022, when I got my 30 years in and I could retire, I'm going to run for sheriff. And they'd laugh at me. People would say, you've got your signs in some good locations. You know why that is? Because I would sit with a map and I'd say, well, I need to get one here. And I need to get one here. This is high visibility. This is not something that I did by happenstance. I've planned to do this. I've seen what goes on in this county. I've been out there on the street in your community while you're asleep. I've been out there. I've worked the fatality traffic crashes. I've worked the murders, the rapes, the child sexual abuse, the drug cases. I know what goes on in this community. When I went to the DEA, I was assigned 2 different times. I was a Johnson City police officer, and I was assigned to the DEA. I got to the DEA office, and the lead DEA agent says, hey, Keith, do you know where the drugs are in Johnson City? Because my DEA agents don't know. And this is not a slight towards Mr. Templeton. Federal agencies without local officers, they're blind. Within a couple of months, we were working wires. We took out drug trafficking organizations in Johnson City. I'm hard on crime. I'm hard on drug dealing. Since taking office, there was three locations in this county that I told needed some work, a lot of work. Highway 107 around Maple Swamp, Blackley Creek around Ducktown Road, and in Gray, because it's so close to the city. Since then, it didn't take a lot more officers. All it took was turning the officers loose, giving them the opportunity and letting them know that I'm supporting you. Go out there and do what you've been trained to do. We've got to get the pay up. We've got to get the training. Training and education builds professional officers, and we're well on the road already to doing that. My commitment to you is that I do what I say I'm going to do. Ask some of these guys back here. They can tell you they worked with me for decades. And that's what I'm going to do as the sheriff of Washington County. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Templeton.
In the summer of 1776, Thomas Jefferson was 33 years old. He was sitting in a house in Philadelphia, and he started penning the Declaration of Independence. History will tell us that Thomas Jefferson was not a great speaker. I Perhaps that's the only thing we have in common. But he was a great writer. Years later, through his letters, we know that Thomas Jefferson believed that this office of sheriff was the most important executive office in county government. That's because the people of 1776 believed in self-reliance and self-governance. They were under the rule of the King of England, taxation without representation. And remember that the Revolutionary War started in Concord and Lexington when the British were going house to house taking guns and ammunition from the citizens of that colony. We soon forget about the oppressive government until, look at Ukraine. I tell you that President Zelensky of Ukraine, if he was an American, he would be from Washington County. What did the State Department tell him? Well, would you like a ride out? He said, I don't need a ride out, I need ammunition. I know I've heard that out of the 80,000 registered voters in Washington County, only 20% are going to show up to vote for this election. That's 16,000 people. Now, I'll remind you, one of our founding fathers who wrote the Declaration of Independence is telling you that the office of sheriff is the most important office, executive office in county government. Now, I know a lot of you want to do more than vote. There's a lot of patriots out there. I met you. I know East Tennessee's full of patriots and pioneers and trailblazers. That's who we are. So I'm going to give you that opportunity to serve beyond the vote. So here's what I'm going to do. In 1858, 3 years before the Civil War, Jonesboro looked a lot like it does now, except for the dirt streets and horses were tied up. The Tennessee legislature met and they passed a law authorizing any sheriff in the state of Tennessee to stand up a posse. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a 163-year-old law and I'm going to stand up a posse in Washington County. Posse comitatus is Latin and actually means power of the county. So you see that the citizens of the early colonies believed that self-governance could only be achieved through the power of the people and by the people. They were tired of the oppression. We can't rely on federal government anymore. We in Washington County have to take care of things ourselves. Now, when I stand up this posse, it's going to be 100 people from all corners of the county. We're not going to chase down Jesse James. What I'm telling you is in times of urgency, the Gray Fair, for instance, I have 100 people who are willing to come to the Gray Fair and work it, and that relieves my deputies to go out and fight crime. I've effectively doubled the size of the law enforcement community in Washington County at no expense to the Washington County Sheriff's Department. When we have the Nolichucky River overflows its banks and wipes out homes, when a tornado comes through the county like it's done before, rips apart houses and overturns trees, God forbid that the young girl goes missing, I'll enact that posse and I'll have 100 people show up that we're going to train throughout the year at no cost to the county. They're all volunteers. They're all upstanding citizens. So if you have a servant's heart, if you love America, if you love the great state of Tennessee, and you want to be part of something special in Washington County, I got a place for you. I know I'm going to want more. There's going to be more than 100 people that want to participate. That's fine. Initially, we'll stand up 100. When I enable that posse, you'll have the full powers to fall under me to do whatever we need to do. Now, we're not going to quash insurrections. I've already told you what we're going to do. We're going to help the community. If more people than 100, we'll eventually go to different chapters. I can see having a Nolichucky River chapter to handle things down there. We can do a Gray, Bowmantown, Fall Branch, Limestone chapter. We have a Johnson City chapter. But if you want to help your community, here's your chance. Together, we the people can take back our county, and together, we the people can be self-reliant, not relying on the federal government, not relying on the DEA, who has 2 agents working 10 counties. We the people can take back our county from drug dealers, and we the people can make Washington County the safest place to raise children in this great state of Tennessee. My name's Michael Templeton. I'm running for sheriff. I appreciate your vote. God bless you, and God bless the great state of Tennessee. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Leiden, please.
I want to close tonight by talking a little bit more about some of the issues that were brought up during our earlier questions. Mental illness is a huge issue right now, and I believe COVID has made it worse. The Department of Justice states that approximately 44% of jail inmates are suffering from a mental disorder. I would guess that's probably close or even higher. 1 in 4 of those are at high risk for suicide, and we've all of us that worked in law enforcement see that too. That's no surprise. But you add drug addiction and self-medication to those disorders, and those numbers increase exponentially. The ladies and gentlemen that need that help have a lack of access to mental health and inpatient treatment facilities. We've gone back in time to where jails have once again become the place where they end up, and it's not where most of them belong. I saw the need for a full-time mental health professional, a licensed therapist that could actually write certificates of need for hospitalization, one that was trained in spotting suicidal behaviors and mental disorders, and trust me, she was busy, and she did a great job. But she was trained in who and when to take off of suicide watch. That's an enormous responsibility. Under the current administration, that liability is falling on the shoulders of our detention officers to decide who can come off suicide watch. That's unfair to both the officer and the inmate, and it's a catastrophe in the making, and it will be an expensive one to the taxpayers of Washington County. As your sheriff, I will work with these professionals and develop more programs trying to decrease the reoffending and the reentry back into the jail. Because building bigger jails is not the answer, and I think everybody out there agrees. It's not a solution to the problem, and it only costs you and me, the taxpayers, more money. The original jail was opened in 1994, and the last jail expansion was completed in 2009. It added 230 beds at a cost of approximately $11 million, and it was full the first week it opened. $11 million. The jail now has 620 certified beds, and the head count today was 619. So we're full. We're looking soon at a jail expansion. During our last TCI inspection, they brought it up. They wanted to know what was our plan. We had to get a plan in place. Sullivan County is having to add another 500 beds at a cost of $96 million to the taxpayers. They have now between 900 and 1,000 inmates, but my prediction is when that facility opens in 3 years, it'll be full too, the day it opens. But I hope you see where I'm coming from with this. Don't get me wrong, there are some people who can't function lawfully in society and they need to be in jail, and they'll spend more of their lives on the inside than out. But that's not the population I'm talking about. We can't keep doing the same things we've done for the past 50 years and expect different outcomes. Over the past few months, we've seen the kind of sheriff that one of our candidates will be. Employees should be allowed to come to work without the fear of intimidation. Employees should not be demoted or threatened because of their political views. No one wants to work in an environment that way. The men and women at the sheriff's office have a difficult job to do. They have enough to worry about without being afraid they'll be terminated or punished because they are exercising their constitutional rights to the freedom of speech. I'm Lita Leinen, and I'm humbly asking for your support and vote. I'm asking for an opportunity to serve. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you all for coming out tonight. Let's give them a round. And that concludes our forums tonight, so don't forget to vote in May, August, and November, and we'll post this. Monday's the last day to register to vote if you aren't registered, so make sure. We'll post this video on our website, johnsоncitypress.com.